Hi guys, Emily from Hyperspace Props, and today we're going to learn how to play Coruscant Shift. Coruscant Shift was first introduced on the Halcyon, the Star Wars Galactic StarCruiser, and I love it. I love playing, especially with my 8 and 7-year-old, because it teaches them pretty basic and good some math skills, and it's really easy and fun for them to enjoy. Before I explain how to play, let me talk about the deck for a minute. There are 62 cards in the deck, and there are 3 suits: circles, triangles, and squares. Each suit has 20 cards, and there are 10 negative and 10 positive, but there are also 2 zero cards called Cyclops. These 0 cards count for any suit. There's a pair of dice that you need for the game. One is a numbered die and the other one is a shapes die. The numbered die has -10, 10, -5, 5, and 2 zeros. And the silver die has 2 squares, 2 triangles, and 2 circles. The object of the game is to get to a hand total as close as possible to the number that you roll on the numbered die. Then if there aren't any ties, the tiebreaker is whoever has most of the suit rolled. So dealer rolls the dice. Our goal today is to get to a hand total of 5, and our suit that we're trying to get is squares. So these are my chips, these are your chips. We're gonna play with increments of 1, 5, and 10. Now each of us need to pay 1 ante into the pot, and then dealer deals out 5 cards to each player. In Coruscant Shift, there are only 2 rounds to improve your hand. The rounds go as select your cards, bet, and then there's a shift. And then it happens again, you select, bet, and then we reveal. So let's play. First step is select. Let's check out what you have. And you have a hand total of 0. But we don't have to keep all of our cards. So you get to choose which cards you want to keep and put in your selection spot. And then during the shift round, you will discard all of your other cards that are still in your hand. As you're selecting cards, you don't actually have to keep any of them. You can choose to discard all of them, and then you'll get 5 new cards on the shift. So our total is 5 in squares. So let's keep the 5, 1, and -1. So you're gonna place your selected cards in your selection spot. And you're gonna make it so everyone can see how many cards you've kept. Now I'll do the same for my hand. I'm gonna keep 2 of my cards. I'll put them in my selection spot. And now it's time to move on to betting. Starting with left of the dealer, the player can choose to either check, which means bet nothing at all, or they can raise, which means to increase the bet. So you've got a really good hand. So let's put 2 in for you. And now it's my turn, and since you raise the bet, I have to call, which is to match your bet of 2, or raise it again, put more in, or I can fold, which means drop out. Any players who choose to fold need to discard all of their cards into the discard pile. I will call. The third step is the shift. This is where we take our cards that are not in the selection spot and discard them, and the dealer deals out new cards equal to the number that we discarded. So it's really easy to tell how many we discarded because we can see how many we kept. So I will deal out 3 to me and 2 to you. And then this all starts over again with selecting our cards. So let's check out your hand. So remember, you have a hand total of 5 in your selection spot with 2 squares. With your new hand, it doesn't really help you at all. So really, you're just gonna wanna discard those. The most important thing you need to remember during this selection process is that you cannot deselect any of the cards you selected from the first round. They stay in that selection spot. You don't have to put any of the new cards that you got into the selection spot. You can just choose to discard them all. So let's check my hand now. So this new hand doesn't help me, so I'm not gonna select any more cards to put in my selection spot. So now we discard the cards that we chose not to keep, and we bet 1 more time. You actually have a really good hand, and you have the advantage here because you have 3 cards and I only have 2. I know that it's possible that you could have a 5 and 3 squares. Maybe I have a 5 and 2. That cannot beat your hand if you had 3 squares. So you could bet high, try and get me to fold, or you can try and bet low and try and keep me in so that you can get more of my money. So let's say you bet 2 again. I'll call that. And now we reveal. So we know your hand total was a 5 with 2 squares. I ended up having a 5 with 0 squares. So congratulations, you win that. So this pile of credits is now yours. So now you win because you have 2 squares and I didn't even have any squares. So if you just had 1, you still would have won because I didn't have any. Now say I did have 2 squares, how would we break that? Well, there are different ways we can do it. On board the Halcyon with the holo table, what they would do is if there was a tie between number and suits, they would simply split this pot between the 2 winners. In the written rules of Coruscant Shift, it says that the tied players need to draw a card, and whoever has the highest number wins. So you drew a 10 and I drew a 9, so therefore you would win. In our house rules, we like to play that the tied players draw a card, and whichever card number is closest to the rolled number on the gold die wins. So you had a 10, I have a 9, our goal is 5, so therefore I would win that one. So after we're done playing that hand, we discard our cards, shuffle the deck, roll the dice again, deal out 5 more cards, pay our antes, and play another hand. On the Halcyon Hollow table, you only play as many hands as you have players. So in our case, there's only 2 of us playing, so we would just play 2 hands, and at the end of that, we would see who had the most credits, and then that person would win. But we just like to keep playing until somebody's out of credits. Let's talk strategy. Folding in Coruscant Shift is a very good strategy. The hands are short enough and the betting is usually low enough, but it's a good idea if you don't have the target number in at least one of the suit, you should probably just fold. But the way we play does change depending on what is rolled on the gold numbered die. If we roll a 0, that's actually the easiest number to get to since there's an equal number of positive and negative cards in the deck. So if your goal is 0 and triangles, if you end up having a total of 0 in your hand but no triangles, you're probably gonna wanna fold because it's really easy for all the other players to get a 0 and then therefore have higher chance of having that suit in their hand. If your goal is a 0, you probably wanna have 3 of the target suit in your hand. Now again, this changes depending the number of players you have. If it's only the 2 of us, it's less likely that you're gonna need to have more of the suit in your hand. If there's 4 players, you're gonna wanna make sure you have a very strong hand of the exact number and of more of the suit so that you have a higher chance of winning. Now, if the die rolls a 10, that's a lot harder to get to. You probably don't need any of the suit if it's just 2 players. Or if you have a hand total of 9 or 11, you might even be able to win with that because it's so hard to get. Another strategy is after the shift happens and I decide that I do not have a good enough hand to win, I just might keep all 5 of the cards just to bluff you and make you think that I've got a really good hand. If I keep all 5 cards, other players are a lot more likely to bet lower or even just fold thinking that I might have a really good hand. But overall, it is a lot harder to bluff and shift if other players have more cards than you. It's also a lot harder to bluff since there's only 2 rounds in hand. If you come across one of the style ops, you're always gonna wanna keep it because it counts for any of the suit and it just is a 0 so it doesn't hurt your hand. And that's how you play Coruscant Shift. If you think I left anything out or you have a question, please leave a comment. If you would like to buy a Sabacc deck, whether that be traditional, spike, or shift, we have lots of styles on our website along with dice and credits and everything else you need to play. We also have printable rules that you can download along with tips and strategies. Thank you so much for playing with me. Stay tuned for a little skit of me and Michael playing Coruscant Shift.